Hello my dear students, welcome to your Geography's online class. Today in this class we will be discussing a new chapter, that is industries. Here in today's section we will discuss about what an industry is and the different types of industries based on various factors. Also we will discuss that why is industry so much an important factor for the development of any nation. So let's first discuss about industries and what it is all about. When we say industry, it means an economic activities that is associated with production of goods. But before the production of goods, what is most importantly required is the raw materials. So hence we also see an industry as the processing of these raw materials to produce the final product. Hence it can be very well defined as an economic activity that involves the processing of raw materials into production of a final product or a finished product which a consumer can use. So industries then can be defined as an economic activity concerned with the processing of raw materials and manufacturing of goods that we use. Why is this industries needed or need for industries in our society or in a country like India which is developing on its own? Industry is very important. So when we say why it is so important or why it is needed, then we can say that industries is needed for economic development of a country, for providing employment to the citizenship of that particular country, also to improve or enhance the standard of living and to meet the human needs. So this is why industries are very important. And these industries overall brings the economic prosperity, or you can say development, in a country which is still developing countries. Now let's discuss about the classification of industries. On its broad classification, we say industries are divided into three categories. One, based on raw materials, the other is based on size, and the third one is based on ownership. So these are the three broad classification of industries: on the basis of raw material used, on the basis of size, and the third one based on ownership. Now these three broad classification is further classified into subtypes. So let's first discuss about the industries that are based on raw materials. On this group of industries, we find or we differentiate them on the basis of the types of raw material that they use. The raw materials are of various types. Some are metals, some are non-metals. Some are minerals, while some are agro-based industries or agricultural raw materials. So on this basis, the first category of the industry classified under the broad head as based on raw materials, the first type of industry that we see is agro-based industry. The agro-based industries are the industries which uses raw material from agricultural products. For example, clothes. We see that clothes never grow on plants, but it is the cotton that is processed into fine threads, and then those threads are used to make clothes. So hence, here what we see is cotton as an agricultural product, and the cloth we see as a factory product is been made using that very cotton. So such an industry which depends on agricultural product for the raw material is known as agro-based industries. The second type under this category is mineral-based industry. The mineral-based industries uses raw material extracted from the earth, and these raw materials are mostly mineral ores. The mineral-based industries, they uses mineral ores as the raw material which are extracted from the earth's surface. For example, if you see iron and steel industries, the iron which is produced in the industry is made by processing first the iron ore which is found in a natural form on this earth, and then the final product or the finished goods is the iron rods or the steel rods. So such an industries are the mineral based industries. The third type of industry under this category is marine industry. When we say marine industry, it is completely based on the raw materials that is extracted from the oceans or from the water bodies. So mostly under this category, the fish industries falls, as because fishes are extracted from the ocean waters. So we can state that marine industries are the industries that uses raw materials from seas and ocean. Now the fourth and the last subtype of industries categorized under the raw material industries is the forest based industry. As the name itself implies, the forest based industries are the industries that uses raw material as the forest products. So we can say that forest industries or forest based industries are the one that uses raw material from as the forest products. So these are the four different types, or you can say subtypes of industries based on the uses of raw materials: the agro-based industry, the mineral industry, marine industry and forest industry. Now let's come to the second broad classification, that is based on size. Let us discuss this the industries based on size as well as about the subtypes. Under this category of industries, the types or subtypes are divided into two categories, or you'll have two different subtypes under this category of industries. One is you call it small scale industry, the other is you call it large scale industries. Now when we talk about small scale and large scale, these industries, the small and large is not on the basis of the infrastructure of that particular industries. Rather, it is so-called small and large based on the investments done on those industries and also the product, the output that comes of those industries. So let's first see the small scale industry. In small scale industries, everything that is put into effort is not very huge in amount. It is very less. So when we say small scale industries, here what we see is, here it's less capital invested Capital invested, that means money that have been put onto these industries are very less and not huge sum is been utilized for manufacturing in this type of industry. Second, you see production is also less. And at the same time, also the introduction of technology, or you say amount of technology used, is also very less. Under this category, you can also find cottage industry of this small scale. So when we talk about cottage industries, cottage, a small confined room like a house where the family member works and most of the work are handmade. There is no much technology involved in the cottage industries. Those are mostly handmade products that comes from the cottage industry, which can also be categorized under the small scale type, the small scale industry. Now coming to the large scale industry, as opposed to that small scale industries where everything from investment till production is so less, here in large industries you find more investment, in more capital invested, production is higher as compared to the small scale industries, and also there is an introduction of the latest technology. So this is where we get to see the large scale industries and small scale industries. Now, industries based on ownership. Under this head, we find 4 subtypes of industries: the private industry, the public industry, joint industries and cooperative industries. Under the category private industries, we find individual ownership. Private, owned by an individual. So this is an individual ownership. So a single person owns the industries. So under that category, it comes as private industries. Sometimes it may also happen that it may not be one single person owning that industry. It may be group in 2s or 3s, but it is not related to the government, and they own it and they are the sole owner of such industries, and this categorized as private industry. Under the head public industries, we find under the government. There are industries which are taken care by the government, like the government of India. So in this categories, you find, we call it as public industries. For example, Oil Corporation of India is completely owned by the government, but there is also Reliance Oil, which we find, but that Reliance is completely a private sector, but Oil India Corporation is for public sector. One that is owned by an individual or a group, the other that is public is owned by the government. In joint sector or in joint sector industries or joint industries, we find that both private and public, that means a group of individuals or the government, they work together. In such a case, we call it joint industry. So here you find public and private working together is what we call joint industries. In cooperative, you find in cooperative industries as owned by the few group of people who are mostly either producers or they are the traders. So they own such groups. So this is owned by either producer, that is a group of people who could be called themselves as producer, or traders. So this are the four different categories of industries based on ownership. So once again, to conclude, the industries, as we discussed, under its three broad classification based on raw materials, based on size and based on ownership. Each of these broadly classified industries are further subdivided into their subtypes. In raw materials, you find agro industries, mineral industries, marine industries and forest industries. On the basis of size, it's a small scale industry and a large scale industry. You also have cottage industry under small scale industry, and the last one is based on ownership. Under this category, we find the private, public, that is private industries, public industries, joint industries and cooperative societies. So this is for the class today. Thank you, and you all have a very good time.